What did you do to my son? Mama Nkechi's voice did not just speak, it tore through the humid air of the EBUBE market like a rusted blade. The morning sun was just beginning to bake the red dust of the earth, but inside the small stall where the dried fish was sold, the air was suddenly ice cold. Nkechi did not answer immediately. She stood with her back to her mother, her hands moving with a strange rhythmic mechanical precision, as she sorted the smoked catfish into piles of three, one pile for the living, one pile for the dead, and one pile for the things that walk between. Nkechi, look at me when I am speaking to you. The older woman stepped forward, her wrapper tied tight around her waist, a symbol of a mother who had fought lions for her children. But as she looked at her daughter's face, Mama Nkechi felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the wind. Nkechi turned slowly. Her eyes were not the eyes of the girl who used to sing in the choir. They were flat, like the surface of a stagnant pond. He is sleeping, mother, Nkechi said. Her voice was a hollow echo. Toby is finally resting. It is noon, Nkechi. A 6-year-old boy does not sleep when the sun is at its peak. He has not eaten. He has not moved since yesterday's rain. What did you give him? The market around them continued its chaotic dance. The shouting of the tomato sellers, the honking of the yellow buses, the smell of diesel and overripe plantain. But in this corner of the world, a mother and a daughter stood on opposite sides of a great dividing. Nkechi smiled then, but the smile did not reach her cheeks. It stayed on her lips, cold and sharp. I gave him peace, mother, the kind of peace you never gave me. I stopped the noise. I stopped the crying. I stopped the prayers. Mama Nkechi staggered back, her hand flying to her chest, where her heart beat like a trapped bird. She remembered the warning, the dream she had 3 nights ago, where she saw a black hen plucking the eyes out of its own chicks. She had woken up drenched in sweat, ready to enter the secret place of prayer, ready to stand in the gap for her grandson. But her husband had groaned in his sleep. Mama Nkechi, come back to bed. It is just a dream. You pray too much. Rest your old bones. And for the first time in 30 years, Mama Nkechi had listened to a man instead of the spirit. She had closed her eyes. She had fallen back into a heavy dark sleep. And while she slept, the hedge was broken. Now she looked at her daughter, the child she had carried for 9 months, the child she had nursed with milk and hope, and she realized she was looking at a stranger. Nkechi had always been different. Ever since she returned from that city job in Lagos, she came back with expensive wigs and a soul that felt like it had been scrubbed clean of light. She stopped going to the Friday vigils. She laughed when she saw her mother kneeling by the bedside. God is tired of your voice, Mama. He has bigger problems than your small family. But a mother's prayer is not about the size of the problem. It is about the size of the territory she must defend. And Mama Nkechi had left her post. She had slept when the watchman was supposed to be awake. Move out of my way, Mama Nkechi barked, her voice regaining its iron. She pushed past Nkechi, her feet flying over the uneven ground, heading toward the small room at the back of the stall. Where little Toby lay, the room was dark. The only light came from a small crack in the wooden ceiling. Dust motes danced in the air, but they did not dance like happy things. They swirled like tiny gray ghosts. Toby was lying on the mat. His favorite toy truck was clutched in his small hand. His skin was the color of ash, and his chest, his small, fragile chest, was not moving. Toby, Mama Nkechi whispered, the word falling like a stone into a deep well. Toby, my son. She reached out a trembling hand, touching his forehead. It was not cold. It was hot, burning hot, but not with the heat of a fever. It felt like touching a coal that had been dipped in oil. Behind her, the doorway darkened. Nkechi was standing there, leaning against the frame, watching her mother's agony with a terrifying curiosity. You are too late, Mama. The contract is signed. The debt is being paid. What debt, Nkechi? What have you done in the dark? Mama Nkechi screamed, the sound echoing through the rafters, startling the birds outside. I prayed for you. I fasted for you. Nkechi laughed, a dry, crackling sound. You prayed when it was convenient. You prayed when you were happy, but you slept when the shadow entered the house. You slept when I was crying in the next room. You slept when the voice told me that Toby's life was the price for my glory. The city of EBUBE was a place of many altars. Some were built with stones and fire. Some were built in the secret corners of high-rise offices. And some were built in the hearts of those who grew tired of being poor. Neci had grown tired. She had seen the women in the city with their gold chains. She had seen the cars that cost more than her father's life. And she had made a choice that required a mother to be asleep, because a praying mother is a wall of fire, and no demon can negotiate. With a woman who was on her knees, Mama Nkechi fell to the floor, her knees hitting the hard earth. The weight of her failure was heavier than the world. She looked at her grandson, whose eyes were beginning to roll back in his head, revealing only the whites like two pale moons in a dark sky. Lord, she tried to cry out, but the words stuck in her throat. It felt like sand. It felt like thorns. The atmosphere in the room was thickening. The shadows in the corners were no longer just shadows, they were stretching, reaching out toward the boy on the mat. Don't bother, Mama, Nkechi said, stepping into the room, her footsteps making no sound. The heavens are brass today. I made sure of it. I took your prayer beads and I threw them in the river. I took your Bible and I buried it under the threshold. You think your God will answer a woman who couldn't even stay awake for one night? This was the setup. The world was no longer the simple market town of EBUBE. It was a battlefield where the currency was not Nira or Cabo, but the souls of the innocent and the vigilance of the elders. Mama Nkechi looked from her daughter to her grandson. She saw the marks on Nechi's wrists, thin red lines that pulsed with a dull, nauseating light. She realized then that this was not just a family quarrel. This was an ancient war, and she was the soldier who had fallen asleep on her watch. Air began to hum, a low vibrating sound that made the teeth ache. The toy truck in Toby's hand began to melt, the plastic dripping onto the mat like blood, and the boy's mouth opened, not to breathe, but to let out a sound that was not human. Why did you sleep, Mother? Nkechi whispered, coming closer, her face twisting into something predatory. Why did you let me walk into the dark alone? The battle for Toby's soul had begun, but the warrior was old, the enemy was inside the house, and the fire on the altar had gone out. For we continue. Let me know in comments below, from which country are you watching from? It is a heavy price to pay for a life you did not earn. The old woman's voice was like dry leaves skittering across a grave. She was not the old woman from the market. She was not the woman Nkechi had slapped in the street. She was the woman who lived in the belly of the forest where the trees have ears and the water flows backward. Nkechi stood in the center of the hut. Her expensive silk wrapper was stained with mud. Her gold earrings felt heavy, like lead pulling at her earlobes. I did not ask for your philosophy, Nkechi snapped. I asked for the power. The kind of power that makes men tremble when I walk into a room. The kind of power that makes the bank managers bow their heads. The old woman chuckled, a wet gurgling sound that made Nkechi's skin crawl. The power is yours, but the power is hungry. It does not eat fufu and egusi. It eats the laughter of the innocent. It eats the breath of the one who carries your blood. Tonight, when the moon is hidden, you must take the boy to the river, and you must make sure the one who prays is silent. Nkechi remembered these words as she stood in the room watching her mother weep over Toby's body. The conflict was no longer a secret. It was a living, breathing thing between them. What did you do at that river, Nkechi? Mama Nkechi stood up. Her legs were shaking, but her eyes were beginning to clear. The fog of sleep was finally lifting, replaced by a cold, burning clarity. I am your mother. I birthed you in pain and in joy. I know when a spirit that is not yours is speaking through your mouth. Nkechi stepped back. Her hand went to her throat, where a small black stone hung on a silver chain. The stone began to glow, a dull, sickly purple light that filled the room. You know nothing, Nkechi hissed. You stayed in this village and grew old and gray, selling fish for pennies, begging for God to send you daily bread. I wanted the whole bakery, mother. I wanted the world, and you gave them Toby for it. Mama Nkechi's voice was a whip. You traded your son for a car and a house in Lagos. You traded the fruit of your womb for the vanity of the eyes. He is not dead yet, Nkechi whispered, and for a second, just a flickering second, the old Nkechi looked out through those flat eyes. A girl who was terrified of what she had become. But the shadows are coming for him at midnight, the old woman said. If I don't bring him back to the river, the shadows will take me instead. This was the complication. The trade was not finished. Toby was the bait, but Nkechi was the prize the darkness truly wanted. A mother who would kill her own child is the greatest trophy for the pit, because once that line is crossed, there's no coming back. Suddenly, the room began to shake. The dried fish on the shelves outside began to fall. The sound of 1,000 whispering voices filled the air. Nkechi, bring the sacrifice. The moon is rising. Mama Nkechi ran to the door. She tried to pull it shut, but the wood felt like it was made of snakes. It twisted in her hands, slippery and cold. I will not let you take him. I will stand here until the sun comes up. Nkechi's face began to distort. The beauty she had bought with blood began to peel away, revealing something gray and hollow beneath. You cannot stand, Mama. Your knees are weak. Your spirit is thin. You slept when you should have watched. The legal ground is theirs, Mama. Nkechi felt the truth of those words like a physical blow. In the realm of the spirit, everything is about legal ground. By sleeping, by neglecting the altar of protection, she had left the door unlatched, and the enemy had walked in with a contract signed in her daughter's greed outside. The market was disappearing. A thick, unnatural fog was rolling in from the lagoon. The sellers were packing their bags in a hurry, sensing an evil they could not name. The air is heavy, they whispered. The gods are angry today. Inside the hut, Toby let out a sharp, piercing cry. His eyes flew open, but they were not brown anymore. They were the color of the purple stone around Nkechi's neck. He looked at his grandmother, and he did not see a protector. He saw an enemy, Grandmother, Toby said. But the voice was deep and ancient. Why did you let her take me to the forest? I called for you in the dark. I shouted your name when the needles touched my skin. But you were snoring. You were dreaming of peace while I was being sold. The guilt was a mountain. Mama Nkechi fell to her face. The dust of the floor entered her mouth. Forgive me, Toby. Forgive me, Lord. I am a failure. I am a mother who slept on the battlefield. Nkechi laughed a high, manic sound. Yes, Mama. Cry until the floor is wet. It changes nothing. The time is 11 p.m. In 1 hour, the owner of the stone comes to collect. Complications arose like thorns in a thicket. The father of the boy, a man Nkechi had left behind in the city, suddenly appeared at the market gate. He was a man of prayer, a man who had been searching for his son for months, but the fog blinded him. The spirits of the market led him in circles. Toby, he shouted, his voice lost in the mist. Nkechi, where are you? Nkechi froze, hearing the voice of the man she once loved. The man who had warned her about the easy path. The stone around her neck pulsed violently. It didn't want the father there. It didn't want a second intercessor. Kill him, Nkechi. The stone whispered in her mind. If he finds the boy, the contract is void, and you will wither like a salted snail. Nkechi looked at the machete leaning against the wall, the one used to cut the large fish. Her hand reached for it, her fingers trembling. She was caught between the love of her past and the terror of her future. Mama Nkechi saw her daughter's hand close around the handle. She saw the darkness taking complete control. Nkechi, no. Do not add blood to blood. I have no choice. Mama, Nkechi said, her voice becoming a growl. I am already dead inside. I'm just making sure the rest of the world matches me. The clock in the distance struck the half hour. The fog turned from gray to black, and the shadows in the room began to stand up tall, featureless. waiting for the clock to strike 12. The battle was no longer just about Toby, it was about the soul of a mother, the redemption of a daughter, and the high cost of a single night of spiritual slumber. Mama Nkechi realized. She couldn't fight this with her hands. She couldn't fight this with her tears. She needed to find the fire she had let go out. She needed to find the frequency of heaven. But the stone was humming so loud. She couldn't even hear her own thoughts. The shadow touched the boy's feet, and Toby began to scream, a sound of pure, unadulterated terror that shook the very foundations of the EBUBE market. The clock did not just tick. It hammered against the silence of the room like a judge's gavel. 11:45 p.m. The air was so thick with the scent of sulfur and rotting lily that Mama Nkechi could barely draw breath. She looked at Nkechi. Her daughter was no longer standing like a human being. She was hunched, her fingers elongated, the machete in her hand dragging on the floor with a screeching sound that set the teeth on edge. "The owner is at the gate," Nkechi croaked, her voice sounding like two stones grinding together. "Do you hear the horses, Mama? Do you hear the chains?" Mama Nkechi listened, and her heart turned to water through the thick, unnatural fog of the EBUBE market. She heard it, the sound of heavy iron-shod hooves striking the pavement. But there were no horses in this city. There was only the sound of something ancient, something that had been invited in and was now coming to claim the deed. "Toby, get up," Nkechi commanded. The boy stood up like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. His eyes were still glowing that sickly purple. He did not look at his grandmother. He walked toward his mother, his small hand reaching out to touch the cold steel of the machete. "Stop him," Mama Nkechi screamed. She lunged forward, but an invisible force slammed her back against the wooden shelves. The dried fish scattered like dead leaves. "I cannot stop what you allowed," Nkechi said. "You were the gatekeeper, Mama. You fell asleep at the post. The enemy did not climb the wall. He walked through the door you left open." This was the escalation. The spiritual law was being read aloud by the darkness. Every prayer missed, every night spent in shallow sleep instead of deep intercession, was now being used as a bridge for the shadow to cross. The purple stone around Nkechi's neck began to crack, and from the cracks a dark, oily smoke began to pour out, forming the shape of a hand that hovered over Toby's head. "Lord, help me," Mama Nkechi gasped. Her voice was a thin thread. "I am sorry. I am sorry for the nights I chose comfort over the cross. I am sorry for the hours I spent talking when I should have been listening." The shadows laughed, the sound coming from the walls, from the floor, from the very air itself. "Your sorrow is a day late," the shadows whispered. "The sacrifice is marked outside." The father of the boy had reached the stall. He pounded on the door. "Nkechi, let me in. I know he is in there. I can feel his spirit crying." Nkechi turned toward the door, the machete raised high. "He will be the first to die," she whispered. "A father's blood to seal a mother's greed." The climax had arrived. It was the moment of the great test. Mama Nkechi realized that if she did not move now, if she did not find a way to break the legal hold of the darkness, her entire lineage would be wiped out in a single stroke of the clock. She didn't reach for the machete. She didn't reach for her daughter. She reached for the earth. She dug her fingernails into the dirt floor of the stall, and she began to hum not a song of the village, but a low, vibrating groan. The kind of sound a woman makes when she is in labor. The kind of sound that bypasses words and goes straight to the throne. "Stop that noise," Nkechi shrieked. She swung the machete at the air, as if trying to cut the sound, but the groan grew louder. It was the sound of a mother reclaiming her watch. It was the sound of the fire being relit on a cold altar. Purple light in the room began to flicker. The oily smoke wavered. "You think you can pray now?" the shadows hissed. "You are weak. You are old ****. I am a mother." Mama Nkechi whispered between the groans. "And a mother does not sleep when the lion is in the room." She began to name the attributes of her God, not with pride, but with the desperation of a drowning woman. "The one who watches over Israel, the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps. If I slept, he did not. The door to the stall began to glow. The father outside began to pray too. Their voices met in the atmosphere, creating a frequency that the darkness could not tolerate. The purple stone around Nekichi's neck shattered into 1,000 pieces, cutting her skin, drawing blood that was black and thick. She screamed a sound of agonizing release. She fell to her knees, the machete clattering to the floor. The boy Toby blinked, the purple glow leaving his eyes, replaced by the soft, tear-filled brown of a terrified child. "Grandma," he sobbed, "the dark man is touching my heart. Not today," Mama Nkechi roared. She stood up, her gray hair flying wild. She looked like a prophetess of old. She stepped into the center of the room, and she laid her body over the boy, a living shield, a sacrifice of her own. "If you want the blood of this child, you must take mine first, but you cannot take mine, because it is already covered by the Lamb." The room exploded in a flash of blinding white light. The shadows recoiled. The iron hooves outside skidded and turned. The clock struck 12, but the silence that followed was not the silence of death. It was the silence of a battle won in the 11th. Nkechi lay on the floor, sobbing, the gray scales peeling off her skin. The father broke down the door, and Toby ran into his arms. But Mama Nkechi did not move. She stayed on her knees, her forehead pressed to the ground, watering the earth with her tears. She had saved the child, but she knew the cost. She knew that the battle had only been won because she refused to sleep. 1 second longer. Most people miss what happens after this moment. The sun did not just rise the next morning. It broke over the EBUBE market like a golden promise. The fog that had swallowed the streets was gone, leaving behind only the damp smell of rain and the scent of fresh earth. Inside the small stall, silence reigned, but it was no longer the silence of a graveyard. It was the silence of a sanctuary. Nkechi sat on the floor. Her expensive silk wrapper was in rags. The gold was gone. The arrogance was gone. She looked at her hands. The skin was scarred where the purple stone had shattered, but the blood that flowed now was red and warm. She was human again, but she was a woman who had seen the bottom of the pit. The father of the boy Chidi sat with Toby clutched in his arms. The boy was sleeping, a deep, natural, beautiful sleep. His chest rose and fell with the rhythm of a life that had been bought back from the edge. "I am going back to the village," Nkechi whispered. Her voice was cracked, like a vessel that had been broken and glued back together. "I do not want the gold anymore. I do not want the city. I just want to remember how to pray." Mama Nkechi did not answer. She was still on her knees in the corner. Her back was turned to them. Her head was bowed so low it touched the wooden crate. "Mother," Neka called softly, "the sun is up. The danger has passed. You can rest now." But Mama Nkechi did not move. A panic began to rise in Nkechi's chest, a fear sharper than the shadows of the night. She crawled across the floor, her knees scraping the dirt. She reached out a hand and touched her mother's shoulder. "Mama." Mama Nkechi's body tilted slowly and then slumped into her daughter's arms. Her face was peaceful. The wrinkles of worry had smoothed out. She looked younger, like the girl she had been before the world broke her heart, but her skin was cold. The fire that had kept the darkness at bay had consumed the candle. Enki let out a scream that stopped the breath of every bird in the trees. "No, not like this. You saved him, Mama. You cannot leave us now." She held her mother's body, rocking back and forth. As the market women began to gather at the door, they saw the broken stall, they saw the shattered stone, and they saw the woman who had stood the watch until her heart stopped beating. But then Toby stirred in his father's arms. He opened his eyes, and they were clear, brilliant, and full of a light that did not belong to this world. He climbed down from his father's lap and walked to where his mother held his grandmother. "Don't cry, Mommy," Toby said. His voice was soft, like the rustle of angel wings. "She isn't gone. She just had to go and give the report." Nkechi looked at her son. "What report, Toby?" The boy reached into his small pocket, the one on the shirt he had been wearing at the river. and he pulled out something that made everyone in the room gasp. It was a small, smooth, glowing white stone. It looked like a piece of the moon had been trapped in a pebble. "She gave this to me in the dark," Toby whispered, "when the shadows were pulling my legs." Grandma appeared. She wasn't old in the dark mommy. She was wearing a dress made of fire. She told the shadows that she had been sleeping, but she was awake now. And then she gave me this. She told me it was the weight of every prayer she ever whispered for you. She told me that as long as I hold it, the shadows can never find our house. Again, Nkechi took the stone from the boy's hand. The moment her fingers touched it, she felt a warmth spread through her body. She heard a voice in her mind, not the scratching voice of the old woman in the forest, but the humming voice of her mother, singing the lullaby she used to sing when Nkechi was a baby. "Sleep, my child. The Lord is your keeper. The sun shall not smite you by day, nor the moon by night." And then the plot twist that moved the village to tears as Nkechi wept over the white stone. She noticed something on the floor underneath her mother's hand. There was a piece of paper, torn from an old ledger. It was a list written in Mama Nkechi's shaky, undeveloped handwriting. It was not a list of debts or a list of groceries. It was a list of times: 1 a.m., Nkechi's school fees; 3 a.m., Nkechi's marriage; 4 a.m., Toby's health; 2 a.m., Nkechi's soul. The list went on for pages, years and years of hours, every night for 30 years. Mama Nkechi had set her alarm. She had woken up when the world was silent to stand in the gap. She hadn't just prayed once. She had built a wall of time around her family. The one night she had slept, the one night she had listened to the voice of comfort, the enemy had found the gap, and she had died filling it with her own living. Nkechi stood up. She carried her mother's body out into the sunlight. The market women fell to their knees as she passed, not because of Nkechi's silk or her gold, but because they were standing in the presence of a martyry. Mother's prayer is the only thing that stands between the world and the dark. It is a heavy burden. It is a lonely watch, but it is the only fire that never goes out, even when the eyes are closed. And Nkechi went back to the village. She took over the small stall. She raised Toby with the white stone on the mantle, and every night, when the clock struck midnight, Nkechi did not go to bed. She lit a candle. She opened her Bible, and she began to speak to the one who never slumbers, because she knew now that the children are only safe as long as the mother is awake. If stories like this stay with you, please support me in making these stories by subscribing now. Thank you so much.